In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Look, then, to the signs of God's mercy, how He restores to life the earth after its death. The following section alludes to one flower from the pure eternal garden of the above verse. It is as if all the blossoming trees are beautifully composed odes, speaking poetically through the tone of disposition reciting the manifest praises of the glorious creature. Or it is as if all the blossoming trees have opened thousands of gazing eyes and have caused thousands of others to open in order to behold, not with one or two eyes, but with thousands, the glorious fashioners' wonders of art which are being broadcast and exhibited, and so that attentive people will gaze on them too. Or it is as if all the blossoming trees have beautified their verdant limbs with the finest adornments for the moments of their parade and for their own particular festivals in the general festival of spring, so that their glorious monarch will contemplate the gifts, subtle wonders, and resplendent works of art he has bestowed upon them, and so that he will present the creation's gaze the bejeweled instances of his mercy in springtime and on the face of the earth, which is the exhibition of divine art, and so that he will proclaim to mankind the wisdom in the creation of the tree. He demonstrates the perfection of divine power through showing that important treasure hangs on their delicate branches, and what significant wealth there is in the fruits of his merciful bounties. The imagination sees heavenly angels embodied from these trees with thousands of flutes. From these flutes, the consciousness hears the praises of the ever-living one. Their lips have tongues, each reciting the word, "It is He, it is He," meaning, "O ever-living one, O ever-living one." Since all things chant in unison, there is no God but He, and they are seeking truth. From beginning to end, they recite, "O ever-living one." They are chanting in unison, "O God," and we send down from the skies water rich in blessings. A short addendum to the first stopping place. Listen to the verse. Do they not look at the sky above them, how we have made it and adorned it, and there are no flaws in it? Then look at the face of the heavens. You see how it is silent in its tranquility, how it is in motion with wisdom, how it is radiant with majesty, how it smiles with its adornment. An unending and infinite sovereignty is proclaimed to those who think by the order in its creation, by the symmetry in its art, by its shining lamps, its brilliant lanterns, its glittering stars. Do they not look at the sky above them, how we have made it and adorned it, and there are no flaws in it? The following explains the above passage. Then look at the face of the heavens, etc., which in turn is an explanation of the verse quoted. Firstly, the phrase, how it is silent in its tranquility. The verse directs an attentive gaze to the beautifully adorned face of the heavens, so that the one beholding it may become aware of the silence, that which is within a vast tranquility, and so that he may understand that it is thus through the command and subjugation of one possessing absolute power. For if they had been independent and unrestrained, those huge globes, all in close proximity to each other, those infinite, awesome heavenly bodies, would have caused such an uproar with their enormously swift revolutions that they would have deafened the cosmos. And there would have been such confusion in that tumultuous commotion that it would have scattered the universe. It is well known what a commotion and uproar it causes if 20 water buffalo work on top of each other. Whereas we know that there are among the stars some which are thousands of times larger than the earth, and which revolve at a speed 70 times faster than that of a cannonball. So the degree of power and subjugation of the glorious Maker and all-powerful One of perfection may be understood from this together with the degree of obedience and submission to Him of the stars. Secondly, the phrase, how it is in motion with wisdom. The verse commands us to look at the motion on the face of the heavens, which is with wisdom and purpose. Indeed, that mighty, wondrous motion occurs within a precise and comprehensive wisdom. For example, a craftsman who operates a factory's machinery with wisdom and purpose demonstrates the degree of his skill and craftsmanship in proportion to the order and grandeur of the factory. Similarly, when we look at it in this way, the degree of power and wisdom of the all-powerful One of glory become apparent to us through His making the mighty sun as a factory and its planets, those awesome, immense globes, like the factory's machinery, and His spinning and revolving them like stones in a sling. Thirdly, how it is radiant with majesty, how it smiles with its adornment. It has this meaning. The radiant majesty and smiling adornments on the face of the heavens are such that they demonstrate the sublimity of the glorious Maker's sovereignty and exquisiteness of His artistry. As the myriad electric lamps hung about on festival days demonstrate the degree of King's majesty and achievement in material progress, the vast heavens, too, with their majestic and adorned stars, demonstrate to attentive gazes the sublime sovereignty and exquisite artistry of the glorious Maker. Fourthly, by the order in its creation, by the symmetry in its art. This phrase says the following: look at the order of the creatures on the face of the heavens and see their symmetry and precise balance, then understand just how powerful and wise is their Maker. Indeed, the vast heavens demonstrate the degree of power and wisdom of the One who transforms various and tiny creatures or animals, thus preparing them for their duties, and who impels each of them on a determined way by means of its particular balance and the degree of their obedience and subjugation to Him. Similarly, the vast heavens demonstrate to attentive gazes through their awesome vastness and innumerable stars, and the stars through their imposing hugeness and speedy revolutions, and the fact that they do not exceed their bounds by an iota, even for a second, or neglect their duties for a tenth of a second, the exceedingly fine and particular balance with which the glorious Maker carries out His dominicality. Fifthly, an unending and infinite sovereignty is proclaimed to those who think by its shining lamps, its brilliant lanterns, its glittering stars. This phrase states clearly what is alluded to in the above verse, and in many similar to it, which mention the subjugation of the sun, moon, and stars. That is to say, to attach the heat and light-giving lamp of the sun to the embellished ceiling of the skies, and to make it the ink pot for writing the missives of the eternally besought One in lines of day and night on the pages of summer and winter, and to make the moon like the hour hands which shines on the large clocks on minarets and towers, and our hand of time's mighty clock on the dome of the heavens, and to make it move through its mansions with precise balance and perfect measure in the form of many varying crescents, so that it leaves one crescent one night and then later returns to collect it, and to adorn the beautiful face of the sky with stars that twinkle and smile in the dome of the heavens. All these are signs of the unlimited sovereignty of a sustaining dominicality. They are indications of a majestic divinity which makes itself known to conscious creatures. They invite those who think to believe and to affirm divine unity. Look upon the colored page of the book of the universe. See what forms the golden pen of power has traced. No dark point remains for the gaze of the heart's eye. It's as if God has inscribed His signs with light. Look, what a miracle of wisdom is the amazing universe. Look, what a wondrous spectacle is the vastness of space. Then listen to the stars, listen to their harmonious address. See what wisdom has emblazed on the degree of its light. Altogether they start to speak with the tone of truth. They address the majesty of the all-powerful, all-glorious one's sovereignty. We are each of us light-scattering proofs of the excellence of our Maker. We are witnesses both to His unity and His power. We are subtle miracles, gilding the face of the skies for the angels to gaze upon. We are the innumerable attentive eyes of the heavens, which watch the earth, which study paradise. We are the innumerable exquisite fruits, which the hand of wisdom of the all-glorious and beauteous One has fastened to the celestial portion of the tree of creation, to all the branches of the Milky Way. For the inhabitants of the heavens, we are each of us a traveling mosque, a spinning house, a lofty home. Each is an illumining lamp, a mighty ship, an aeroplane. We are each of us a miracle of power, a wonder of creative art, created by the powerful One of perfection, the all-wise One of glory, a rarity of His wisdom, a marvel of His creation, a world of light. We demonstrated to mankind innumerable proofs. We made them hear with these innumerable tongues of ours, but their accursed, unseeing, unbelieving eyes did not see our faces. They did not hear our words. And we are signs that speak the truth. Our stamp is one. Our seal is one. We are mastered by our Sustainer. We glorify Him through our subjugation. We recite His names. We are each of us in ecstasy, a member of the mighty circle of the Milky Way. The third proof, the 23rd flush on nature. First written as the 16th note of the 17th flush, this part of the Risale-i Nur was later designated the 23rd flush because of its importance. For it puts naturalistic atheism to death with no chance of reanimation and totally shatters the foundation stones of unbelief. A reminder, this treatise explains through 9 impossibilities, themselves comprising at least 90 impossibilities, just how unreasonable, crude, and superstitious is the way taken by those naturalists who are atheists. In order to cut short the discussion here, and because these impossibilities have been explained in part in other sections of the Risale-i Nur, some steps in the arguments have been skipped. It occurs to one, therefore, how is it that those famous and supposedly brilliant philosophers accepted such a blatantly obvious superstition and continue to pursue that way? Well, the fact is they cannot see its reality. And I am ready to explain in detail and prove through clear and decisive arguments to whoever doubts it that these crude, repugnant, and unreasonable impossibilities are the necessary and unavoidable result of their way, in fact, the very gist of their creed. Note, what occasioned the writing of this treatise were the attacks being made on the Qur'an by those who called everything that their corrupted minds could not reach as superstition, who were using nature to justify unbelief, and were vilifying the truth of belief in a most aggressive and ugly fashion. Those attacks stirred up in my heart an intense anger which resulted in those perverted atheists and falsifiers of the truth receiving vehement and harsh slaps. Otherwise, the way generally followed by the Risale-i Nur is a mild, polite, and persuasive one. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Their prophets said, is there any doubt about God, creator of the heavens and the earth? By declaring through the use of a rhetorical question that there cannot and should not be any doubt about God Almighty, this verse clearly demonstrates the divine existence and unity. A point to be mentioned before our discussion. When I went to Ankara in 1922, the morale of the people of belief was extremely high as a result of the victory of the army of Islam over the Greeks. But I saw that an abominable current of atheism was treacherously trying to subvert, poison, and destroy their minds. O God, I said, this monster is going to harm the fundamentals of belief. At that point, since the above-mentioned verse makes self-evidently plain God's existence and unity, I sought assistance from it and wrote a treatise in Arabic consisting of a proof taken from the all-wise Qur'an that was powerful enough to disperse and destroy that atheistic current. I had it printed in Ankara at the Yeni Gün Press. But, alas, those who knew Arabic were few, and those who considered it seriously were rare. Also, its argument was in an extremely concise and abbreviated form. As a result, the treatise did not have the effect it should have done, and sadly, the current of atheism was swelled and gained strength. Now, I feel compelled to explain a part of the proof in Turkish. Since certain parts of it have been fully explained in other sections of the Risale-i Nur, it will be written in summary form here. Those numerous proofs in part unite in this proof, so each may be seen as an element of this proof. Introduction. O man, you should be aware that there are certain phrases which are commonly used and imply unbelief. The believers also use them, but without realizing their implications. We shall explain three of the most important of them. The first, causes create this. The second, it forms itself, it comes into existence and later ceases to exist. The third, it is natural, nature necessitates and creates it. Indeed, since beings exist and this cannot be denied, and since each being comes into existence in a wise and artistic fashion, and since each is not outside time, but is being continuously renewed, then, O falsifier of the truth, you are bound to say either that the causes in the world create beings, for example, this animal, that is to say, it comes into existence through the coming together of causes, or that it forms itself, or that its coming into existence is a requirement and necessary effect of nature, or that it is created through the power of one all-powerful and all-glorious. Since reason can find no way apart from these four, if the first three are definitely proved to be impossible, invalid, and absurd, the way of divine unity, which is the fourth way, will necessarily and self-evidently and without doubt or suspicion be proved true. The first way. This to imagine that the formation and existence of things, creatures, occurs through the coming together of causes in the universe. We shall mention only three of its numerous impossibilities. First impossibility. Imagine there is a pharmacy in which are found hundreds of jars and phials filled with quite different substances. A living potion and a living remedy are required from those medicaments. So, we go to the pharmacy and see that they are to be found there in abundance, yet in great variety. We examine each of the potions and see that the ingredients have been taken in varying but precise amounts from each of the jars and phials, 1 ounce from this, 3 from that, 7 from the next, and so on. If 1 ounce too much or too little had been taken, the potion would not have been living and would not have displayed its special quality. Next, we study the living remedy. Again, the ingredients have been taken from the jars in a particular measure so that if even the most minute amount too much or too little had been taken, the remedy would have lost its special property. Now, although the jars number more than 50, the ingredients have been taken from each according to measures and amounts that are all different. Is it any way possible or probable that the phials and jars should have been knocked over by a strange coincidence or sudden gust of wind, and that only the precise, through different amounts that had been taken from each of them should have been spilled, and then arranged themselves and come together to form the remedy? Is there anything more superstitious, impossible, and absurd than this? If an ass could speak, it would say, I cannot accept this idea and would gallop off. Similarly, each living being may be likened to the living potion in the comparison, and each plant to a living remedy. For they are composed of matter that has been taken in most precise measure from truly numerous and truly various substances. If these are attributed to causes and the elements, and it is claimed causes created this, it is unreasonable, impossible, and absurd 100 times over, just as it was to claim that the potion in the pharmacy came into existence through the files being knocked over by accident. In short, the vital substances in this vast pharmacy of the universe, which are measured on the scales of divine determining and degree of the all-wise and pre-eternal one, can only come into existence through a boundless wisdom, infinite knowledge, and all-encompassing will. The unfortunate person who declares that they are the work of blind, deaf, and innumerable elements and causes and natures which stream like floods, and the foolish, delirious person who claims that wondrous remedy poured itself out when the files were knocked over and formed itself, are certainly unreasonable and nonsensical. Indeed, such denial and unbelief is a senseless absurdity. Second impossibility. If everything is not attributed to the all-powerful and all-glorious One, who is the single one of unity, and is attributed to causes, it necessitates that many of the elements and causes present in the universe intervene in the being of every animate creature. Whereas that different and mutually opposing and conflicting causes should come together of their own accord in complete order with the finest balance and in perfect concord in the being of a tiny creature like a fly, is such an obvious impossibility that anyone with even an iota of consciousness would say, "This is impossible, it could not be." The tiny body of a fly is connected with most of the elements and causes in the universe. Indeed, it is a summary of them. If it is not attributed to the pre-eternal and all-powerful One, it is necessary for those material causes to be themselves present in the immediate vicinity of the fly, rather for them all to enter into its tiny body, and even for them to enter each of the cells of its eyes, which are minute samples of its body. For if a cause is of a material nature, it is necessary for it to be present in the immediate vicinity of and inside its effect. And this necessitates accepting that the constituents and elements of the universe are physically present inside that minute cell, a place too small even for the tip of its antenna, and that they work there in harmony like a master. A way such as this, then, shames even the most foolish of the sophists. Third impossibility. It is an established rule that if a being has unity, it can only have issued from a single being from one hand. Particularly if it displays a comprehensive life within a perfect order and sensitive balance, it demonstrates self-evidently that it did not issue from numerous hands, which are the cause of conflict and confusion, but that it issued from a single hand that is all-powerful and all-wise. Therefore, to attribute such a well-ordered and well-balanced being which has unity to the jumbled hands of innumerable, lifeless, ignorant, aggressive, unconscious, chaotic, blind, and deaf natural causes, the blindness and deafness of which increase with their coming together and intermingling among the ways of numberless possibilities, is as unreasonable as accepting innumerable impossibilities all at once. If we leave this impossibility aside and assume that material causes have effects, these effects can only occur through direct contact and touch. However, the contact of natural causes is with the exteriors of living beings. And yet, we see that the interiors of such beings, where the hands of material causes can neither reach nor touch, are 10 times more delicate, well-ordered, and perfect as regards art than their exteriors. Therefore, although tiny animate creatures on which the hands and organs of material causes can in no way be situated. Indeed, they cannot touch the creature's exteriors all at once even, are more strange and wonderful as regards their art and creation than the largest creatures. To attribute them to those lifeless, unknowing, crude, distant, vast, conflicting, deaf, and blind causes can result only from a deafness and blindness compounded to the number of animate beings. The second way. This is expressed by the phrase, it forms itself. It too involves many impossibilities and is absurd and impossible in many aspects. We shall explain 3 examples of these impossibilities. First impossibility. O you obstinate denier! Your egotism has made you so stupid that somehow you decide to accept 100 impossibilities all at once. For you yourself are a being and not some simple substance that is inanimate and unchanging. You resemble an extremely well-ordered machine that is constantly being renewed and a wonderful palace that is undergoing continuous change. Particles are working unceasingly in your body. Your body has a connection and mutual relations with the universe, in particular with regard to sustenance and the perpetuation of the species, and the particles that work within it are careful not to spoil that relationship nor to break the connection. In this cautious manner, they set about their work as though taking the whole universe into account. Seeing your relationships within it, they take up their positions accordingly. And you benefit with your external and inner senses in accordance with the wonderful positions that they take. If you do not accept that the particles in your body are tiny officials in motion in accordance with the law of the pre-eternal and all-powerful one, or that they are an army, or the nibs of the pen of divine determining, with each particle as the nib of a pen, or that they are points inscribed by the pen of power, with each particle being a point, then in every particle working in your eye, there would have to be an eye such as could see every limb and part of your body as well as the entire universe with which you are connected. In addition to this, you would have to ascribe to each particle an intelligence equivalent to that of 100 geniuses, sufficient to know and recognize all your past and your future and your forebears and descendants, the origins of all the elements of your being and the sources of all your sustenance. To attribute the knowledge and consciousness of 1,000 Platos to a single particle of one, such as you who does not possess even a particle's worth of intelligence in matters of this kind, is a crazy superstition 1,000 times over. Second impossibility. Your being resembles 1,000 domed wondrous palace in which the stones stand together in suspension and without support. Indeed, your being is 1,000 times more wonderful than such a palace, for the palace of your being is being renewed continuously in perfect order. Leaving aside your truly wonderful spirit, heart, and other subtle faculties, each member of your body resembles a single domed part of the palace. Like the stones of a dome, the particles stand together in perfect balance and order, demonstrating the eye and the tongue, for example, each to be a wondrous building, extraordinary work of art, and miracle of power. If these particles were not each officials dependent on the command of the master architect of the universe, then each particle would have to be above, absolutely dominant over all the other particles in the body, and absolutely subordinate to each of them, and both equal to each, and with regard to its dominant position, opposed, and both the origin and source of most of the attributes that pertain only to the necessary extent one, and extremely restricted, and both in absolute form and in the form of a perfectly ordered individual artifact that could only, through the mystery of the unity, be the work of the single one of unity. Anyone with even a particle of intelligence would understand what an obvious impossibility this is, to attribute such an artifact to those particles. Third impossibility. If your being is not written by the pen of the pure eternal and all-powerful one, who is the single one of unity, and is instant printed by nature and causes, there would have to be printing blocks in nature not only to the number of cells in your body, but to the number of their thousands of combinations which are arranged in concentric circles. For if this book, for example, which we hold in our hand is written, a single pen may write it relying on the knowledge of its writer. If, on the other hand, it is not written and is not attributed to its writer's pen, and if it is said that it exists of its own accord, or it is ascribed to nature, then, as a printed book, it would be necessary for there to be a different iron pen for each letter so that it could be printed. In a printing press, there have to be pieces of type to the number of letters in the alphabet, so the letters in the book come into existence by means of them, pens to the number of those letters being necessary in place of a single pen. As may be seen, sometimes a whole page is written in a single large letter from among those letters with a small pen in fine script, in which case 1,000 pens would be necessary for one letter. Rather, if it took the form of your body, with all its components one within the other in concentric circles, there would have to be printing blocks in each circle for each component to the number of the combinations that they form. Now, see, if you claim this, which involves 100 impossibilities to be possible, then again if they are not attributed to a single pen, for those well-ordered, artistic pieces of type, faultless printing blocks, and iron pens to be made, further pens, printing blocks, and letters to the same number as themselves would be necessary. And they too would have to have been made, and they too would have to have been well-ordered and artistically fashioned, and so on. It would carry on in succession ad infinitum. There you too understand. This way of thinking is such that it involves impossibilities and superstitions to the number of particles in your body. O denier of God, see this and quit the way of misguidance.